Imagine stepping into a grand mansion where every mirror whispers your darkest secrets, where your own reflection turns against you, clawing at your soul until nothing remains but screams in the night. In 19th-century Pennsylvania, 5 brides entered paradise, only to descend into hell. Was it a curse from God, or the devil in human form? Tonight, the truth will haunt you. In the shadowed valleys of 19th-century Pennsylvania, where the smoke of the Industrial Revolution choked the skies like the breath of some infernal beast, stood the town of Millbrook. Nestled southwest of Pittsburgh amid coal-veined hills that bled black gold into the Monongah River, this once sleepy hamlet had awakened into a roaring beast of progress by the 1820s. Factories belched acrid plumes that painted the sunsets in hues of rust and ash, while the clang of hammers on iron echoed like a relentless heartbeat through the streets. Wealth flowed like the river itself, carving grand estates into the landscape for those cunning enough to seize it. But beneath this veneer of prosperity lurked a darkness, a moral rot that festered in the hearts of men who played God with the lives of others. It was into this crucible of ambition and sin that Jeremiah Hartwell descended in 1821, a man whose very presence seemed to bend the air around him. At 25, he carried the scars of his humble Ohio roots, a blacksmith's son, forged in the fires of poverty, where every meal was a battle won through sheer will. His eyes, sharp as forged steel and blue as a winter sky, missed nothing. He arrived not with inheritance, but with a predator's instinct, spotting opportunities in the westward expansion like a hawk eyeing prey. Railroads were the future, he knew, veins of iron that would pump life into a growing nation. By 1826, his Hartwell Iron Works dominated the valley, producing spikes and rails that bound the continent together, all while binding his fortune in chains of gold. The mansion on Beacon Hill, completed in 1828, rose like a monument to his conquest, a 3-story Georgian colossus of red brick and white columns, its 42 rooms a labyrinth of opulence. Imported marble from Italy gleamed under crystal chandeliers, while gardens sprawled like Eden reclaimed, manicured hedges whispering in the wind. But the heart of this beast was the master bedroom suite in the east wing of the second floor, a vast chamber where light danced through tall, arched windows overlooking the valley's haze-shrouded expanse. Hand-painted wallpaper from Paris depicted idyllic scenes of pastoral bliss, rolling hills and serene figures, but under the flickering gas lamps, those images seemed to shift, eyes following the room's inhabitants. The 4-poster bed, carved from ancient Pennsylvania cherrywood, loomed like a throne of judgment, its canopy heavy with velvet that absorbed sound, turning whispers into echoes. Mirrors adorned every wall, ornate gilt frames reflecting infinity, capturing every angle, every flaw. Jeremiah himself was a figure of biblical allure and menace, over 6 feet tall, with hair silvered prematurely like a prophet touched by divine fire. His voice, deep and resonant, commanded rooms as if reciting scripture, drawing men to deals and women to dreams. Society buzzed around him, matrons schemed invitations, daughters blushed under his gaze. He wielded charm like a weapon, making each soul feel chosen, anointed. Yet beneath it simmered a ruthless calculus, a sin of pride that viewed people as pieces in his grand design. In the eyes of Millbrook, he was the pinnacle of success. In the eyes of heaven, perhaps, a fallen angel building his tower to Babel. When he courted Margaret Dunlap, the 19-year-old daughter of Judge Elias Dunlap, it seemed a union ordained. Fair-haired and quick-witted, Margaret embodied the virtues of her era, modest, intelligent, with a laugh like spring rain. Their October 1829 wedding at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church was a spectacle. 300 guests in silks and top hats, the air thick with rose petals and hymnals. Bells pealed across the valley, heralding what all believed was eternal bliss. But as Margaret crossed the threshold of Beacon Hill, carrying her bridal bouquet, a chill wind stirred the curtains, as if the house itself exhaled a warning. The descent began subtly, like the first crack in a dam before the flood. In the spring of 1830, Margaret's vibrancy faded. Once the life of salons, her conversations now trailed off, her eyes drifting to the windows where sunlight fractured into prisms on the glass. Her sister Catherine, visiting one crisp afternoon, found her staring at the pane, fingers tracing invisible patterns. "The house speaks to me," Margaret murmured, her voice a fragile thread. "It knows things about us all." Catherine laughed it off, but the unease lingered, a seed of dread planted in fertile soil. By summer, the changes deepened, shadows lengthening like fingers across her mind. Margaret insisted on sleeping only in the master suite, claiming other rooms felt unforgiving, as if the mansion judged her unworthy. The staff, loyal souls like Sarah Quinn, the head housekeeper with her calloused hands and kind eyes, whispered of the watching. Hours melted away as Margaret stood before the windows, not gazing outward at the blooming gardens or the river's silver ribbon, but inward, at her reflection. She tilted her head, left then right, as if conversing with a twin trapped in glass. The light played tricks, her features softening in the glow, then sharpening in shadow, eyes seeming to blink independently. The air in the suite grew heavy, scented with lavender from her sachets, but undercut by something metallic, like blood on iron. Nights brought no respite. Jeremiah would find her awake, sheets twisted, murmuring to the vanity mirror. "What do you see?" she'd ask her image, pausing as if awaiting revelation. The mirrors multiplied her torment, each one a portal to judgment, reflecting not just flesh but soul, exposing sins unspoken. Was it guilt over some trivial vanity? Or a deeper divine retribution for Jeremiah's hubris, spilling onto the innocent? The breaking came on a sweltering August evening in 1830, during a dinner for Pittsburgh magnates. Candlelight flickered on silverware, casting elongated shadows across damask tablecloths. Laughter filled the air, laced with cigar smoke and claret's tang. Midway through the roast, Margaret rose abruptly, her gown rustling like dry leaves. She approached the dining room's grand mirror, a towering antique with gilded edges that caught the flames like hellfire. There, she engaged her reflection, gestures sharp, voice rising in argument, then dissolving into that unnatural trill of laughter. "Why do you look so weary?" she demanded, head cocked, waiting. The guests froze, forks suspended. As she paused for replies only she heard. Jeremiah, his face a mask of composure cracking at the edges, approached gently. "Darling, come sit." But she recoiled, "Not yet. She's not done speaking." That night, Sarah Quinn awoke to shredding sounds echoing through the halls. Creeping to the master suite, lantern trembling, she found Margaret nude under moonlight streaming through uncovered windows. Her skin glowed pale, marred by gooseflesh, as she peeled wallpaper in deliberate strips, fingernails scraping, revealing plaster beneath. "I must see what's hidden," she said calmly, eyes serene yet vacant. The walls yielded nothing, just mundane lath and horsehair plaster, dust motes dancing in the beam. But to Margaret, it was epiphany, an unveiling of truths buried like bones. Dr. Harrison Henley arrived at dawn, his black bag heavy with leeches and laudanum. A stern man with wire-rimmed spectacles, he examined her in the suite's oppressive warmth. Physically sound, but mentally fractured, fixation on reflections, he noted, as if the soul is bifurcated, one half accusing the other. Margaret spoke of the other me, revealing the house's sins, whispers of past wrongs, divine warnings. Henley diagnosed nervous exhaustion, perhaps from marital duties overwhelming her feminine delicacy. But in private, he pondered darker forces. Was this hysteria, or a spiritual affliction, a mirror to the soul's corruption? Within weeks, supervision became constant. Margaret roamed mirrors like a pilgrim seeking shrines, dialoguing with the other Margarets. Covering them provoked rage, claws raking fabric, blood streaking her hands. The staff crossed themselves, muttering of demonic possession. Jeremiah, ever the rationalist, consulted texts, but his journals betrayed torment. Is this punishment for my ambitions? Has God turned my paradise to purgatory? The climax struck September 15, 1830. Margaret amassed reflections, hand mirrors, silver trays, polished brass, arranging them in a mandala around the bed, a chaotic altar under gaslight's hiss. All night, she conferred, voices overlapping in madness. Dawn found her catatonic, recognizing no one, addressing only glass-bound phantoms as kin. Henley recommended commitment to Pennsylvania Hospital for the Insane, a grim fortress of barred windows and echoing wails. On an October morning thick with fog, Margaret was bundled into a carriage, leaves eddying like lost souls. "I'll return," she called to invisible others. She lingered there 43 years, a shadow seeking reflections, dying in obscurity. Her fate rippled through Millbrook, whispers of curses, hereditary taint. Yet sympathy flowed to Jeremiah, the tragic widower, as Era's misogyny blamed female fragility, overstimulation, disrupted roles. Divine justice? Society scoffed, but in churches, sermons hinted at retribution for unchecked pride. For 3 years, Jeremiah retreated, sealing the suite under shrouds, relocating to a Spartan third-floor chamber. Evenings in his study, amid leather-bound tomes on phrenology and nervous disorders, he sought answers. Firelight danced on his face, highlighting hollow cheeks. Journals revealed anguish. Margaret's eyes in every mirror, accusing. Have I invited this plague? He amassed knowledge, dissecting minds like his ironworks forged steel. Obsession grew, mirrors cleaned obsessively, reflections checked as if to affirm sanity. Margaret's 1833 death, wasted by decline, brought a muted funeral. Buried under a stone etched, "Beloved wife at peace," it closed one chapter. But Jeremiah emerged altered, meticulous in grooming, analytical in love. He spoke of wives as compatible assets, sinning against romance's sanctity. Then came Elena Rodriguez, 22, daughter of a Spanish trader. Raven-haired, with eyes like polished obsidian, she exuded resilience, discussing philosophy with poise. Their 1834 engagement surprised all. The June wedding, elegant yet subdued, promised renewal. Jeremiah reopened the suite, redecorating, fresh wallpaper of biblical motifs, gardens of Eden, but with serpents lurking. New mirrors gleamed, larger, more insistent. Elena thrived initially, hosting soirees where laughter echoed, touring the suite proudly. Mornings at the vanity, brushing hair, her reflection vibrant. 6 months of bliss, warmth radiating, confidence blooming. But winter 1834 brought omens. Subtle shifts in gaze, lingering stares at glass. The house's language returned, whispers of sin uncoiling once more. Was this cycle divine wrath, exposing Jeremiah's hidden darkness? Or mere coincidence, veiling deeper evil? As snow blanketed Beacon Hill, Elena's smiles faltered, eyes darting to reflections with growing unease. The mirrors, ever watchful, began their silent sermon anew, promising revelations, demanding souls. In the valley below, factories churned oblivious, but above, a storm of madness brewed, roots in unholy soil. What secrets did those walls conceal? What price for ambition's throne? The tale of Beacon Hill was far from over, its shadows only lengthening, beckoning the next victim into the abyss. The winter of 1834 to 1835 cloaked Millbrook in a shroud of unrelenting frost, the Manana River frozen into a glassy vein that mirrored the town's industrial haze. Snow blanketed Beacon Hill like a pall, muffling the distant clamor of Hartwell Iron Works, where furnaces glowed infernal red against the night. Inside the mansion, gas lamps cast elongated shadows that danced like restless spirits across polished floors and ornate moldings. The air hung heavy with the scent of beeswax candles and coal smoke seeping through cracks, a constant reminder of the valley's ceaseless toil. Elena Rodriguez Hartwell, with her olive skin and dark curls that cascaded like midnight rivers, had entered this world as a beacon of vitality, a daughter of Spanish merchants, raised in the bustling ports of Pittsburgh, where faith in God and family anchored her against life's tempests. Now, as mistress of Beacon Hill, she navigated its labyrinthine halls with grace, her laughter echoing like bells in the grand parlor during soirees. But beneath the facade, an insidious chill crept in, as if the house itself exhaled a venomous breath, poisoning the soul. The first harbingers of Elena's unraveling emerged in February 1835, subtle as the first thaw cracking ice. Maria Santos, her loyal maid, a devout Catholic girl of 20, with calloused hands from years of service and a rosary always tucked in her apron, noticed the shifts during morning rituals in the master suite. The room, freshly redecorated at Jeremiah's insistence, now featured wallpaper of biblical vignettes. Adam and Eve in Eden, serpents coiled in temptation, their eyes seeming to follow movements under the dim light. Mirrors dominated, grand, ornate frames of gilded gold that captured the room's opulence, reflecting flames from a hearth that flickered like hellfire. Elena sat at the vanity, a massive oak piece with triple panes that multiplied her image into an infinite choir. She brushed her hair for hours, Maria confided to her diary, hidden later in the attic's dust-choked rafters, not gazing at her own beauty, but slightly askew, as if addressing a phantom beside her. When I offered tea, steaming with chamomile to soothe, she whispered, "Hush, Maria. She's speaking, of burdens carried in silence, of sins etched into these walls like scripture." By March, these mirror conversations had taken root, blooming into something both intimate and profane. Elena positioned herself before various reflectors throughout the mansion, the hallway's tall cheval glass, where light from leaded windows fractured into rainbows, the dining room's silver-backed antique that caught the glint of crystal decanters. She dialogued with poise, pausing mid-sentence, head tilted as if catching whispers from beyond. Unlike Margaret's frantic rants, Elena's exchanges felt confessional, almost holy, reminiscent of a penitent before a saint's icon. "She shares wisdom," Elena told Maria one afternoon, as rain pattered against panes like accusatory fingers. The scent of wet earth mingled with lavender from Elena's perfume, creating a heady, disorienting fog. About the house's past, the families before, their falls from grace. She guides me on stewardship, like a guardian angel veiled in glass. But Maria, she warns of judgment, of divine eyes watching our every transgression. Dr. Harrison Henley, the grizzled physician with his leather satchel of tonics and probes, was summoned discreetly, his boots tracking mud across Persian rugs. His notes, sealed in wax and later unearthed as evidence, betrayed alarm, a haunting echo of the first Mrs. Hartwell's affliction, yet veiled in serenity. Mrs. Rodriguez Hartwell remains eloquent, her household led with the precision of a general. No raving, no decay, only this fixation on reflections as oracles. Is it hysteria, or something spiritual? A soul's cry against unseen iniquity. Henley pondered biblical parallels, mirrors as symbols of vanity in Ecclesiastes, or portals to truth in Corinthians, for now we see through a glass, darkly. But Elena's delusions deepened, her faith twisting into something chimeric, blending Catholic mysticism with the house's Protestant austerity. The pivot came in April, under budding trees that clawed at the sky like skeletal hands. Elena gathered the staff in the kitchen, where copper pots gleamed and the air thickened with baking bread's warmth. Her voice steady, eyes alight with revelation. The mirror woman has unveiled a truth. Margaret lingers here, imprisoned in the glass, a sentinel soul crying for justice. She guards against the deceptions that devour the innocent. The staff murmured, crossing themselves. Sarah Quinn, the housekeeper, felt a chill despite the stove's heat. Henley wrote to a Philadelphia peer, delusions of spectral presence, yet functional in all else. No fever, no frailty, only this conviction that reflections harbor divine messengers, exposing hidden sins. Could the mansion itself be the serpent, tempting with forbidden knowledge? Jeremiah's response diverged from his anguish over Margaret. Now, it was clinical, a sinner's attempt to quantify the divine. His journals, bound in calfskin and scented with ink's acrid bite, detailed observations, times, triggers, revelations. Elena's path mirrors Margaret's, he penned by candlelight, shadows leaping across pages. Healthy upon entry, fixated within moons. Both receive knowledge unattainable, whispers of history, as if the house confesses its crimes. Environmental or providential retribution for my pride. He initiated experiments, a blasphemous mimicry of scientific inquiry, noting mirror responses under varying lights, sunset's golden haze intensifying visions, midnight's gloom birthing terrors. The vanity mirror, a monolithic sentinel, provoked the deepest trances. Elena queried it like a confessor, receiving tales of prior dwellers, concealed chambers, and secrets that bind the soul in chains. Disturbing fruits emerged, episodes peaking at dusk, when the valley's factory whistles wailed like banshees. Elena described visions, Margaret's true fate, not madness but silencing for unearthed evils. She discovered abominations, Elena confided to Maria, voice trembling as thunder rumbled distant. Induced illusions, to mask the guilty. The mirror woman weeps for her, a martyr's tearing glass. Spiritual undertones chilled. Was this demonic possession, or God's unmasking. Elena invoked psalms, "Search me, O God, and know my heart," but twisted, as if the house judged Jeremiah's soul. By summer, secrecy shattered. Millbrook's parlors buzzed with whispers, carried on carriage wheels through muddy streets. Elena shunned gatherings sans mirrors, anxious without her advisor, her gown sweat-dampened in heat. Crisis crested in August 1835, humidity pressing like a vice. Jeremiah found her in the suite, still as a statue, before the vanity where moonlight silvered her features. The air reeked of ozone from an approaching storm, curtains billowing like ghosts. "She has revealed it all," Elena said, voice a lament. "Your sins against women in this chamber, the poison veiled as cure, the watchful eyes in walls. Why, Jeremiah? What darkness do you hide that demands such sacrifice?" His journal captured the storm. Accusations of hidden passages, captive quarters, experiments on the unwilling. She claims memories etched in mirrors, accessible to the faithful wife. Paranoia blooms into prophecy, alleging I drug her remedies, inducing visions to discredit truths. Specifics pierced, construction blueprints hiding spy holes, tonics laced with hallucinogens, turning faith to frenzy. "The headaches you soothe," she accused, eyes reflecting his pallor. "They're your weapon, twisting minds to veil your iniquities. God sees, Jeremiah, through the glass he judges." Swiftly, Jeremiah summoned Henley, framing it as peril. "Paranoid constructs," Henley noted, echoing the prior case. "Hidden plots, induced madness, a rupture from reality, perhaps from marital isolation." But Elena resisted, launching her investigation, probing walls with Maria and staff, knuckles rapping for hollows amid dust and cobwebs. Behind the wardrobe, a massive cherry piece echoing the bed's carvings, they found it, a panel yielding to pressure, revealing a cramped artery between walls, dank with mildew, pierced by peepholes into chambers. Light from a lantern danced on rough plaster, illuminating scuffs of past passage. Triumph lit Elena's face. The mirror woman speaks truth. If passages exist, so do the sins. Staff recoiled, whispers of hauntings spreading like plague. Jeremiah's entries frayed, unsuspected features from prior owners, innocent quirks? Yet she weaves them into damnation, viewing the house as a temple of deceit, wives as offerings. Gossip ignited Millbrook, questions at Jeremiah's club, smoke-filled rooms where brandy loosened tongues. Passages? Coincidence of afflictions. Divine justice murmured in churches, perhaps retribution for industrial greed, souls crushed like coal. Climax brewed with Don Carlos Rodriguez's arrival, a burly merchant with a gaze like forged steel, storming from Pittsburgh on rumor's wings. The library confrontation, no mirrors, only leather tomes and ticking clocks, unfolded tensely. Elena present, insisting on consultation. "My daughter unveils crimes," Don Carlos thundered, voice echoing off oak panels. "Drugged madness? These demand light, not shadows." Jeremiah's composure cracked, the air thick with accusation, as if the house held its breath, awaiting heaven's verdict. Yet the web tightened. Elena's revelations hinted at deeper rot, a husband's facade crumbling under spiritual scrutiny. Was Beacon Hill a lair of Lucifer, mirrors his eyes? Or a divine crucible, forging truth from torment? The second bride's fall echoed the first, a chorus of condemned souls, beckoning the next into the abyss. In Millbrook's fog-shrouded streets, prayers rose against the night, but the mansion loomed indifferent, its secrets coiling tighter, promising more madness in redemption's name. The August night of 1835 hung over Beacon Hill like a shroud woven from the valley's industrial smog, the air stagnant and heavy with the promise of storm. Thunder rumbled distant, a divine growl echoing through the hills, as if heaven itself stirred in judgment. Inside the Hartwell mansion, the library's oak-paneled walls absorbed the flickering light of oil lamps, casting elongated shadows that twisted like tormented spirits across leather-bound volumes and velvet drapes. The scent of aged paper mingled with the sharp tang of brandy, poured into crystal tumblers that caught the flame's glow, refracting it into prisms of accusation. Elena Rodriguez Hartwell paced the Persian rug, her silk gown whispering against the floorboards, her dark eyes wild with a fervor that bordered on the prophetic. Don Carlos Rodriguez, her father, a towering figure with a beard streaked silver, his voice honed by years of commanding merchant ships, sat rigid in a high-backed chair, his knuckles white around a walking cane carved with saints' icons. Jeremiah Hartwell lounged opposite, his silver hair impeccably groomed, but a bead of sweat tracing his temple betrayed the crack in his facade. Dr. Harrison Henley hovered nearby, his medical bag at his feet like a confessor's toolkit, the air thick with unspoken sins. Elena's agitation peaked when denied a mirror. Her hands trembled as she clutched her rosary, beads clicking like accusations. "I cannot proceed without her counsel," she pleaded, voice a fragile vessel carrying divine urgency. "She guards the truths buried here, protecting me as she shielded Margaret from the serpent's grasp." Don Carlos, no stranger to the mystical tales of his Spanish homeland, where apparitions and omens guided fates, leaned forward. Unlike the dismissive whispers of Millbrook's elite, he probed not with skepticism but with a merchant's keen eye for hidden value. "Daughter, speak plainly. What visions has this mirror woman bestowed? What shadows of the past does she unveil?" His words hung like incense in a cathedral, invoking a confessional depth. Elena's revelations poured forth like a flood from parted seas, details that defied earthly knowledge, as if plucked from the ether by angelic hands. She described the mansion's genesis under Elias Beaumont, its first owner, a reclusive mill tycoon who vanished in 1815 amid whispers of embezzlement, down to the hidden alcoves he carved for smuggling ledgers. Architectural secrets spilled, false chimneys masking vaults, floorboards that lifted to reveal caches. But the true horror emerged in her recounting of Jeremiah's dealings, names of investors never uttered in her presence, like Silas Thorne, a Pittsburgh banker whose secret loan terms she recited verbatim, private missives to Ohio suppliers, detailing bribes for prime ore, even echoes of library dialogues from 1828, where Jeremiah bartered railroad rights with a senator, his voice captured in her mimicry with chilling precision. "The mirror woman witnesses all," Elena intoned, her gaze distant, as if channeling a biblical oracle. "She has dwelled in these glasses for epochs, accumulating the sins of men like dust on unhallowed altars. She knows why this house was chosen, not for grandeur, but for its veins of deception, pulsing with the blood of betrayal." Jeremiah's denials rang hollow, his charm fracturing under the weight of divine exposure. "Mere conjecture, fueled by fevered dreams," he countered, but his eyes darted to the shadows, as if fearing judgment's gaze. Yet Elena's accuracy mounted, a crescendo of condemnation. The mansion selected for its passages, a web for ensnaring secrets. His empire built on pilfered whispers, blackmail as currency. Marriages not unions of heart, but shields of sanctity, veiling profane pursuits. The room's atmosphere thickened, lamps sputtering as wind howled outside, rattling panes like restless souls demanding reckoning. Was this madness, or providence unmasking iniquity? Biblical echoes resounded, Jeremiah as a false prophet, his house a modern Babel, toppling under heaven's scrutiny. The gathering's tenor shifted when Dr. Henley arrived, summoned by Jeremiah for a veneer of medical authority. His coat dusted with road grit, he entered the fray, expecting to certify delusion. But Don Carlos commandeered the stage, his presence a bulwark against deceit. "Doctor, enlighten us. How do two virtuous women, untainted by prior affliction, succumb to identical torments in this accursed chamber?" Henley's brow furrowed, his spectacles glinting like scales of justice. The era's medicine, rooted in humors and nerves, offered scant armor against such enigmas. "Uncommon, yet conceivable," he conceded, voice measured. "Environmental plagues, stress's yoke, isolation's chill, or insidious substances, might forge parallel paths. The mirror fixation hints at shared phantoms, or exposure to agents birthing visions, rendering minds fertile for spectral seeds while preserving outward poise." The words lingered, a damning scripture in the stifling air, redolent of pipe smoke and fear. If induced, Margaret's fall transformed from tragedy to martyrdom, a sacrificial lamb to veil Jeremiah's transgressions. Elena, sensing the tide, grew fervent, not raving, but prophetic, her pleas for a mirror like a psalmist's cry for vision. Denied, she unraveled threads of the house's secrets, locked attics hiding forged deeds, compartments in hearths cradling extortion notes. Jeremiah blanched, his protests feeble against her unearthly insight. The pinnacle struck when she rose, illuminated by lightning's flash through windows, declaring, "The mirror woman decrees, the proof lies entombed here, awaiting resurrection." She led them upstairs, the procession a somber pilgrimage, footsteps echoing on marble stairs, candles guttering in draughts that whispered warnings. In the master suite, moonlight pierced lace curtains, silvering the vanity where reflections had birthed nightmares. The wardrobe loomed, a monolithic guardian of sins. Under Elena's guidance, her hands steady as a saint's, they shifted it, wood groaning in protest. The panel yielded, revealing the passage Maria had glimpsed, but deeper, a niche carved like a confessional booth, stuffed with artifacts of damnation. Don Carlos, lantern aloft, unearthed a leather ledger, its pages crackling like dry bones. Entries in Jeremiah's script chronicled voyeuristic feasts. April 22, 1829, overheard Mayor Wilkins' affair in guest quarters, leverage for zoning favors. July 14, 1830, witnessed rivals' patent sketches, replicated for profit. A litany of exploitation, souls bartered for gain, evoking Judas's 30 pieces. Jeremiah's success a tower of stolen whispers. Deeper still, oilcloth parcels yielded letters from Dr. Heinrich Zimmermann, a shadowy émigré from Berlin, peddling therapies for wayward wives. His script, angular and Teutonic, detailed alchemical horrors, mercury vapors to fog minds, opium tinctures laced with belladonna for spectral dances, herbs from shadowed forests inducing mirror-bound obsessions. "The genius lies in subtlety," he boasted. "Vanity's mirror becomes the noose, delusions discredit truths, preserving the husband's throne." Elena's headache cures, unmasked as venom, potions timed to evenings in the suite, where isolation amplified their curse, turning reflections into accusers of the soul. The final trove chilled deepest, dossiers on a clandestine syndicate, Jeremiah's web spanning Pennsylvania's corridors of power. Passages not mere peepholes, but arteries to copy chambers, where seals were forged and letters duplicated under candles' hush. Marriages as masquerades, brides like Margaret and Elena, chosen for poise, deployed as unwitting sirens at galas, gleaning secrets while their breakdowns erased discoveries. Margaret's fate sealed when she chanced upon a ledger. Zimmermann's elixirs her crucifixion, madness her crown of thorns. Elena, treading the same path, had been anointed similarly, until divine intervention, through her father's zeal, shattered the cycle. Don Carlos's eyes blazed with righteous fury, a patriarch invoking Old Testament wrath. "This ends now," he thundered, bundling documents like sacred scrolls. "Elena departs this den of vipers, bearing testament to your fall. Doctor, amend your ledger, these women are martyrs to poison, not madness." Henley, face ashen, nodded gravely. "If genuine, a crime against nature and God. Recovery awaits, once toxins flee the temple of her body." Jeremiah, composure a crumbling idol, countered with serpentine calm, fabrications, sown in delirium soil. Zimmermann? A phantom of her fever. But Don Carlos parried, "Then submit your vials to alchemist's fire, your script to scribe's scrutiny. Truth will out, as light pierces gloom." The impasse fractured with Sarah Quinn's entry, the housekeeper's apron stained from years of silent complicity, her face etched with penitence. "No more shadows," she declared, voice quaking like Eve confessing the apple. "I've beheld the ruin of saints, Margaret's light dimmed, Elena's flickering. The master brewed those drafts from unmarked files, foreign couriers his apostles. European miracles," he claimed, "but I saw the wives' eyes glaze, mirrors becoming their tormentors." Her testimony wove the final thread, dosages escalated in solitude's grip, passages traversed under night's veil for spying feasts. Guilt, long suppressed, now a flood of redemption. Sarah's soul unburdened, aiding heaven's justice. The room pulsed with revelation's aftershock, storm breaking outside in sheets of rain that lashed windows like divine lashes. Jeremiah's empire, forged in sin's furnace, teetered, his brides not victims of fate, but offerings to ambition's Moloch. Spiritual chills permeated, the mirror woman as angelic harbinger, exposing pride's rot, the mansion a purgatory, where souls were weighed and found wanting. In Millbrook's churches, sermons would soon rail against such hubris, but here, in the heart of darkness, redemption dawned for the afflicted. Elena, vindicated, stepped into her father's embrace, the rosary a talisman against further evil. Yet the tale's shadows lingered, promising more brides, more judgments, in the unyielding gaze of Providence. The storm that had threatened all evening finally broke over Beacon Hill on that fateful August night in 1835, rain lashing the mansion's slate roof like the scourge of divine wrath. Thunder cracked the sky, illuminating the library's somber confines in flashes of ethereal light, casting grotesque shadows that clawed at the walls as if hell itself sought entry. The air grew electric, heavy with the ozone tang of impending judgment, mingled with the musty odor of old books and the faint, acrid bite of fierce sweat from the assembled souls. Sarah Quinn stood in the doorway, her weathered face a map of suppressed torment, apron twisted in gnarled hands that had scrubbed away evidence of sins for a decade. Her voice, when it came, cut through the tension like a confessor's blade. "I've seen the light fade from their eyes, the poison twist their minds." Mrs. Margaret whispering of watchers in the walls, her meals bitter on the tongue, mirrors mocking her with phantoms. And now Mrs. Elena echoes the same lament, food tainted, reflections alive with accusations. "I dismissed it as the devil's play, but God knows, it was man's doing." Elena's eyes, once clouded by hallucinogenic veils, now sharpened with the clarity of a soul reborn. She sat erect, her olive skin flushed under the lamp's warm glow, fingers interlaced in a gesture of quiet prayer. Don Carlos nodded, his merchant's instincts honing in on the truth like a ship to harbor. Dr. Henley, spectacles fogged, paced the rug, his medical certainties crumbling like ancient parchment. Jeremiah remained seated, his silver hair a crown of false authority, but his hands betrayed him, fingers drumming a silent rhythm of calculation on the armrest. Sarah's testimony unfolded like a litany of sins confessed in a dimly lit chapel. She recounted the wives' descents, Margaret's growing seclusion, her once bright conversations dissolving into murmurs at empty corners, friends shunned as paranoia bloomed. She'd stare into the glass, pleading with her shadow self, insisting eyes peered from plaster. Her suppers left untouched, claiming a metallic aftertaste, like brimstone, she said. Elena's path mirrored it, a spiritual echo, isolation deepening, family visits curtailed, reality fracturing into shards where hallucinations reigned. "They fought to speak truth," Sarah wept, "but we branded them mad, blind to the serpent in our midst." The room fell silent, save for rain's relentless patter, a rhythmic dirge underscoring the weight of collective guilt. Biblical undertones permeated, Jeremiah as Cain, mocking his brides with invisible brands of betrayal, the women as Jobs, tested in furnaces of induced torment, their cries unheeded until Providence intervened. Dr. Henley's world shattered next, his role in the deception laid bare like a false idol toppled. The remedies he prescribed, innocent tonics for feminine frailties, had been supplanted by Jeremiah's venoms, administered under the guise of care. His diagnoses, penned in precise script, had armored the poisonings, painting Jeremiah as the sorrowful spouse enduring domestic plagues. I must examine Mrs. Elena at once," he stammered, voice cracking like thunder's echo. The library's hearth flickered low, embers glowing like accusatory eyes. "If toxins linger, there'll be signs, tremors, pallor, residues in blood or hair. We counteract with purges, emetics, prayer for the soul's restoration." His unwitting complicity evoked spiritual dread, a healer turned unwitting executioner, his hands stained by proxy in this dance of deception. Redemption beckoned, but at what cost to his eternal ledger? Jeremiah, sensing the noose of fate tightening, pivoted with the cunning of a fallen angel bartering for lesser damnation. His confession spilled forth, measured and deliberate, as rain drummed an accompaniment on leaded panes. The passages? Inherited from Beaumont, that shadowy predecessor whose empire crumbled under similar shadows. Useful for intelligence, yes. Guests' whispers turned to leverage, negotiations swayed by unseen ears. He leaned forward, blue eyes piercing the gloom, voice resonant as a pulpit sermon. But poisoning? Absurd. The wives stumbled upon secrets, their minds fracturing under truth's burden, like Eve tasting forbidden fruit, knowledge cursing them to madness. He claimed the elixirs legitimate, failures of era's crude science, not weapons. Margaret obsessed over personal surveillance, twisting business into marital betrayal. Elena wove the same web, her fantasies birthing conspiracies from thin air. Yet Zimmerman's letters, unearthed like cursed scrolls from a pharaoh's tomb, rent this facade asunder. Their ink, faded but damning, detailed symptoms too precise. Mirror fixations as veils for discrediting truths, hallucinations blooming in isolation soil. Don Carlos's gaze hardened, a patriarch invoking Mosaic law. "Courts shall weigh your soul," he intoned, voice booming over storm's roar. "Elena departs this Gehenna now, under healers untainted by your gold." The group rose, a procession of judges, as Elena spoke, her words a revelation, parting clouds of delusion like Moses' staff. "The mirror woman endures," she said, calm as a saint in ecstasy. "Not spectre, not madness, but my unyielding self, guardian against the fog you cast." The suite's air, when they returned there, felt charged, mirrors reflecting lamplight in infinite judgment. Elena's epiphany, her conversations, internal psalms, subconscious battling venom, piecing truths from drugged haze. "She was me." Remembering overheard whispers, glimpsed parchments, Zimmerman's missives when you deemed me addled. God preserved that spark, divine light in darkness. The aftermath cascaded like a biblical flood, sweeping Millbrook's cobblestone streets and Pittsburgh's bustling wharves. Don Carlos, documents clutched like holy writ, stormed to authorities, sheriffs in starched collars, judges with powdered wigs, unleashing scandal's torrent. Elena, sequestered in her father's manse, shed symptoms swiftly, mirror obsessions waning under clear skies, rationality blooming anew. Her recollections, sharp as etched scripture, mapped Jeremiah's empire. Clients named, bribes tallied, a network of shadows spanning rivers and rails. Legal tempests brewed in autumn's chill, leaves swirling like lost souls around the courthouse, a stern edifice of granite and justice. The Hartwell conspiracy, unveiled. Compartments yielding ledgers of extortion, political puppets danced by Jeremiah's strings. Clients, judges with stained robes, politicians with greased palms, paid fortunes for rivals' secrets. Margaret's exhumation, under moonlit graves, revealed toxins residue, mercury's gleam in bones, a silent scream of homicide. Her asylum records, dusted from archives, chronicled lucid pleas, poisoned by husband, to silence crimes, dismissed as delirium, now canonized as martyr's testament. Sarah's witness sealed fates, her timeline a rosary of dosages, unmarked vials from shadowed couriers, administered in teas and cordials, timed to evenings when wives lingered in the suite's oppressive embrace. Guests too, she revealed, dizzy after dinners, visions plaguing their nights. Zimmerman, snared in Philadelphia's fog-shrouded asylums, confessed under lantern's glare, a network exposed. Physicians wielding medicine as shackles, silencing women who dared challenge patriarchal thrones. The scandal rippled, implicating dozens. Wives committed for hysteria. Daughters drugged for disobedience, a pattern of patriarchal sin evoking Herod's slaughter, divine retribution long overdue. Jeremiah's trial gripped Pennsylvania like a revival tent meeting, galleries packed with wide-eyed spectators, newspapers inking sensational broadsheets. Elena testified with poise, her voice a clarion call, experiences detailed, spiritual resilience lauded. Sarah's accounts grounded it in domestic drudgery. Zimmerman's betrayal, bartered for leniency, dissected the poison's alchemy. Defense painted Jeremiah as pawn, ensnared by Zimmerman's wiles, but evidence countered, his initiations, requests for insanity simulations, a hubris akin to Lucifer's fall. Verdict thundered, guilty, murder, attempted slaying, conspiracy's litany. Sentence: hanging, rope's embrace in 30 days, body swaying like a pendulum of justice under December's iron sky. Elena, fully redeemed, remarried in spring's bloom, a Spanish importer, their union blessed in cathedral splendor. She shunned publicity, her testimony her final word, living long in quiet grace. The mansion, symbol of industrial avarice and feminine vulnerability, sold to quench debts, passages bricked, mirrors shattered, sweep petitioned into mundane quarters for rail workers, their boots echoing where brides once wept. Yet its ghost lingered, a chilling legacy of divine eyes piercing mortal veils, retribution for sins against the weak. Reforms flowered, asylum laws tightened, independent verifications mandated, women's rights fortified against medical tyranny. Henley, penitent healer, delved into toxicology, his works, funded by seized estates, advancing detections, advocating equality in care. Broader questions haunted. How many silent sufferers? Records hinted thousands, women warehoused, voices stifled, stories buried like unmarked graves. The case preached belief in the improbable, Margaret and Elena's warnings, once madness, now prophecies fulfilled. Today, a park claims Beacon Hill's site, amid Pittsburgh's sprawl, skyscrapers rising where factories once belched. A 1985 marker stands sentinel, in memory of Margaret Dunlap Hartwell, Elena Rodriguez Hartwell, and all victims of medical abuse. Their pursuit of truth forged protections enduring. Spiritual echoes chill, mirrors as souls' judges, houses as confessionals, redemption through suffering. The Hartwell saga warns of authority's shadows, urging vigilance lest history's sins repeat in modern guises.